imagine for a second, just really put yourself in this scenario. You're driving down a pitch black country road.
Oh man, yeah. No streetlights, nothing.
Exactly. There are no signs, just the high beams of your truck kind of, cutting through the shadows. You are a large animal veterinarian, and you've just been called out on a medical emergency.
Which is already super stressful, I mean, even on a good night.
Right, absolutely. And your brain is entirely focused on a routine expectation. So a longtime client, a rancher named Irene, called with this really strained voice to say her oldest mare, Dapple, is failing.
Yeah.
So you are mentally preparing to diagnose a sick horse or, well, perhaps to humanely end its suffering. You're bracing for grief.
Right, you're getting into that specific headspace.
But what you absolutely do not know as your tires turn off the pavement and onto the dirt driveway is that you are walking straight into a hostage situation.
It's just, it's terrifying. And to understand the gravity of the excerpts we're analyzing today from the memoir, The Second Chance at Dapple Ranch, we really have to establish the psychological baseline of this profession.
For sure.
Large animal veterinary work is, I mean, it's grueling. And the worst calls invariably come in the dead of night.
They always do.
Right, and when a seasoned ranching family like the Capshaws, people who are totally accustomed to managing 1,000-pound animals when they call after hours, the stakes are already elevated. The adrenaline is already present.
Yeah, we are looking at this memoir today not just as some true crime survival story. The mission of this deep dive is to really deconstruct this event as a case study. We're looking at the mechanics of threat detection, rapid de-escalation, and frankly, the neurological breaking points of the human mind.
It's a perfect text for that, honestly.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the text relies heavily on the environment to signal that something is terribly wrong, like long before the actual threat is revealed.
All the environmental red flags are everywhere.
Exactly. The vet notes that the drive takes an hour instead of 40 minutes. And then the truck almost gets stuck in thick mud where there should be dry sawdust.
Right, which makes no sense for a working ranch.
0 sense. And then there's an unfamiliar ATV parked outside the barn, despite Irene explicitly stating it would just be her and her husband.
Yeah, that's a massive anomaly.
But, and this is wild, the vet sits in the idling car and rationalizes every single one of these anomalies. They just assume the ATV belongs to a late-night ranch hand. So why do we often ignore these physical red flags when our brains are anchored to a routine expectation?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the brain is fundamentally an energy-saving machine, right?
Okay.
It operates on predictive models. So the vet's operating model is simply, I am arriving to treat a sick horse.
Right, that's the script they're reading from.
Exactly. In cognitive psychology, we look at how the brain processes new contradictory data points like, the mud or a strange vehicle. Accepting those anomalies as a lethal threat would require a massive, just a huge expenditure of cognitive and emotional energy.
Wow, yeah. I guess it forces the brain to completely discard its current schema and build a new, terrifying one in real time.
Exactly. And the cognitive load is simply too heavy to process voluntarily in that moment.
That makes total sense.
So the brain actively suppresses that load through something called normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias.
Yeah, it forces the new alarming data to fit the safe existing model. It's essentially a Bayesian updating failure. The prior assumption, the routine vet call, is so incredibly strong that the brain's error detection systems are effectively muted.
Muted? Wow.
Yeah, primarily the anterior cingulate cortex. It just gets overridden. The vet literally rationalizes away their own survival instincts just to maintain the illusion of control and predictability.
Yeah. But the moment that illusion shatters, reading it is visceral.
Oh, completely.
So the vet walks up to the barn, hears an angry, unfamiliar male voice slipping through the wooden slats, and peers inside. And the expectation of a sick animal just vanishes.
Evaporates in an instant.
Irene and her husband are standing frozen with their hands raised, and standing right in front of them is a man pointing a shotgun.
Just a total nightmare scenario.
Right, and initially the vet assumes this is a robbery, but the dialogue in the memoir reveals a totally different dynamic. The tone of the man's voice isn't like the calculated demand of a thief.
No, not at all.
It is deeply personal and explosive. And that's when the vet realizes the man is Daniel, the Capshaw's own son.
Yeah, and the introduction of intimacy into a lethal threat, it fundamentally alters the psychological landscape.
How so?
Well, a stranger robbing a barn is operating on resource acquisition, right? They just want the money. Right. But a family member holding a weapon, they're operating on a complex historical emotional fracture.
And the text highlights just how warped that emotional fracture is.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel's demanding $30,000 to start what sounds like a totally delusional business venture. A lab with a friend, he calls it.
Right, the addiction is speaking there.
Exactly. And the parents react the way you would expect. They beg him, they tell him they love him, that he is being used, that this path will destroy his life.
Which is the natural parental response.
Right. But Daniel's response is to threaten that if they don't hand over the money, he will take it, even if it means killing them.
Yeah.
But the logic here is entirely broken. I mean, if he kills his parents, the money becomes irrelevant.
Right.
His life is over anyway.
Completely illogical.
Furthermore, the parents' unconditional love and pleading, it seems to be acting as an accelerant to his rage rather than calming him down.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to view Daniel's behavior through the lens of a severe neurochemical hijacking.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Sure. He is entirely detached from the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that governs forward-thinking, cognition, logic, and empathy.
So he's not reasoning at all.
Not at all. He is operating almost exclusively out of the amygdala.
Pure emotion.
Exactly. When the parents beg and offer unconditional love, they are offering complex social cues to a brain that is currently incapable of processing them.
You know, it makes me think of an acoustic feedback loop.
Oh, like with a microphone.
Yeah, like when a microphone gets too close to a speaker, the system loops the sound back on itself until the output is just this deafening, destructive screech.
That's a great way to look at it.
The parents' love and concern is the initial audio, but Daniel's internal system is so distorted by addiction or, mental crisis that it cannot process the input normally. It just outputs raw, externalized hostility.
That is spot on. And the distortion in your analogy is profound, deep-seated shame.
Shame. Wow.
Yes. Shame is an intensely painful social emotion. And for someone in a fractured mental state, internalizing the reality of what they are doing to their own parents is psychologically intolerable.
You just can't bear it.
Exactly. The ego cannot bear the weight of that failure. So, to avoid the internal pain of shame, the brain instantaneously transmutes it into outward rage.
That makes so much sense. So his anger is a defense mechanism.
Exactly. Every word of reason or affection from his parents feels like an attack on his crumbling psyche. He isn't actually seeing his parents in that moment. He is seeing the physical manifestation of his own inadequacy.
Man. So standing outside the barn, the vet realizes this feedback loop is seconds away from ending in murder.
Yeah, time is running out.
They have to make a choice. Retreat and call for help, or step into the fatal funnel. And the vet pushes the barn door open and steps directly into the line of sight of the shotgun.
Which is incredibly brave, but incredibly risky.
Absolutely. The text notes a micro-expression on the father's face, a sudden flash of relief upon seeing the vet. But Daniel catches that micro-expression, turns, and suddenly the vet is staring down the barrel of a loaded weapon.
And see, the introduction of an unexpected external variable in a hostage scenario usually forces a critical pivot.
A pivot, right.
Yeah. It either completely destabilizes the hostage taker into immediate violence, or it disrupts their cognitive loop just long enough to force a reset.
Well, the disruption happens here, but it doesn't actually come from the vet's presence, which is wild.
No, it doesn't.
Daniel's eyes lock onto the vet, but then his gaze shifts slightly past the vet's shoulder, toward the stall where the sick mare is standing.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The memoir describes Daniel's voice changing completely. The hostility just drops.
It's a complete 180.
Yeah, his voice cracks, sounding almost like a frightened child. He puts the shotgun slightly away and asks, "Is he okay?"
It's such a powerful moment. We are witnessing the power of an environmental anchor bypassing a corrupted neural pathway.
An environmental anchor, I love that term.
Yeah, because in states of severe addiction or psychosis, identity becomes heavily fragmented. The version of Daniel holding the shotgun is an identity built on desperation, defense mechanisms, and chemical dependency.
Right.
But the neural network containing the quiet teenager who loved his horse, that still exists, it was just dormant.
And his relationship with the animal is uncomplicated.
Exactly.
Like it doesn't carry the baggage of disappointment or the unbearable shame he feels when looking at his parents.
Precisely. The horse represents an untainted piece of his self-concept. When his visual cortex processes the sight of the ailing horse, it activates the dormant, uncorrupted neural pathway.
Oh.
It forces a sliver of empathy through the psychosis, fracturing his singular focus on the conflict.
It's just incredible. So Irene softly answers him, saying, "No, that's why she's here." And you can literally read the hesitation entering the room in the text.
You can feel the tension shift.
Yeah. The vet recognizes this microscopic opening and makes a move. But reading this section, I strongly question the vet's tactical decision here.
It's highly controversial for sure.
Right. The vet tells Daniel, I can help him, but I need to get my equipment. The vet then reaches into the medical bag and pulls out a specialized firearm used for the emergency euthanasia of large animals and aims it straight at Daniel.
Yeah. It is a staggering escalation of force.
I look at this and see a violation of every established crisis de-escalation protocol.
On paper, yes, absolutely.
You have a highly unstable, armed individual whose aggression is just beginning to crack. Introducing a second firearm into that environment seems incredibly reckless.
It's a huge gamble.
Right, because standard protocol dictates creating time, distance, and shielding. Drawing a weapon on a suspect who already has a shotgun aimed in your direction typically forces a sympathetic startle response or, initiates a shootout.
Right, it usually provokes the exact violence you're trying to prevent.
Exactly. How can we view this action as anything other than a colossal failure of judgment that merely benefited from blind luck?
Well, the criticism is tactically sound, I'll give you that. In a vacuum, drawing a weapon against a drawn weapon is a low percentage survival strategy.
Okay,
But the analysis shifts when we examine the specific situational calculus the vet was employing.
the vet saw something specific.
Yes. The vet observed the structural collapse of Daniel's aggressive posture the exact moment he asked about the horse.
A hesitation.
Right. He was holding the gun, but he was no longer fully committed to using it. The vet did not deploy the euthanasia tool to initiate a firefight. They deployed it as a profound cognitive disruptor.
Almost like a shock tactic.
Exactly. A radical disruption of Daniel's OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act.
Oh, the OODA loop.
Right. Daniel was stuck in a passive loop of emotional momentum. By introducing a sudden, overwhelming, and authoritative lethal threat, the vet forced Daniel's prefrontal cortex back online.
Wow, so forcing him to actually think.
Exactly. The vet was demanding that Daniel make a conscious, binary decision in that exact second, basically. Commit to murder or surrender. It completely removed the ambiguous middle ground where his rage was comfortably operating.
That's fascinating. So
Yeah.
the vet aims the tool and commands, put the gun down. And Daniel's reaction is deeply revealing. He doesn't raise his shotgun to match the threat.
No, he doesn't.
He starts to cry. He tells the vet the shotgun isn't even loaded, claiming he just wanted the pain to stop. He looks at the vet's weapon and says, if you're going to shoot, just do it.
And right there, the mask of externalized aggression falls away to reveal profound suicidal ideation.
That breaks my heart.
It's tragic. He did not want to kill his family. He was desperate for an external force to end his own internal suffering. The hostage situation was really just a convoluted mechanism for self-destruction.
Wow. Well, the vet holds steady, repeating the command to drop the weapon. Finally, Daniel's resolve entirely breaks. He lets the shotgun slip from his hands.
The tension breaks.
But the moment the heavy weapon hits the woody floorboards of the barn, it discharges.
Yeah. The lethal reality of the situation asserts itself right then and there.
So it's loaded.
Exactly. Whether Daniel truly believed the weapon was unloaded or was just lying to himself to mitigate his own guilt, the gun was armed.
A deafening blast tears through the ceiling of the barn.
Yeah.
The horses instantly panic, screaming and kicking violently at their stalls. The sheer sensory chaos of that moment is just overwhelming.
And the physiological impact of that gunshot on the human nervous system cannot be overstated.
It must be massive.
It is. In high-stress psychological literature, we examine the acoustic startle reflex,
Right.
a sudden noise of that magnitude, often exceeding 140 decibels in an enclosed space. It triggers a massive response from the brainstem.
It acts as a neurological circuit breaker.
Perfect way to describe it.
Like the individuals in that barn were caught in a localized cycle of escalating tension. The physical concussion of the blast and the deafening noise force a sensory override. It forcefully interrupts the brain's internal narrative. The threat doesn't end because someone won a tactical victory. It ends because the sheer terror of the accidental discharge shatters whatever emotional scaffolding Daniel had left,
The nervous system resets.
and the aggression simply evaporates.
Exactly.
The aftermath described in the memoir is just a complete emotional collapse. The parents fall to the floor, pulling their weeping son into their arms, literally physically clinging to the person who just threatened their lives.
It's such a complex image.
It really is. And the vet secures the shotgun, throwing it outside into the mud, and returns to a barn where the energy has shifted from terror to quiet, exhausted sobbing. The adrenaline crash is absolute.
Yeah, it leaves nothing but the stark reality of the tragedy that was narrowly avoided.
Absolutely. So amidst this emotional wreckage, the vet turns their attention back to the original patient.
Right, the reason they're there in the first place.
Yes. The vet approaches Dapple's stall, conducts an examination, and discovers a vital piece of good news. Dapple is not dying.
Thank goodness.
Right. The mare has a serious infection, but it is highly treatable. The anchor that inadvertently saved the family is going to survive.
And that diagnosis serves as a grounding mechanism, bringing the focus back to tangible, manageable reality after a period of intense psychological abstraction.
Yeah, back to the real world. Sirens approach shortly after and the police arrive. And this introduces a fascinating shift in the narrative, moving from psychological survival to sociological outcomes.
Right, the aftermath.
The responding officer happens to be a local who knows Daniel and the Capshaw family personally.
Which changes everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? Because despite the severity of the incident, which involves aggravated assault and attempted extortion, nobody presses charges.
This raises an important question about the profound differences between punitive justice and restorative justice within a community context.
Right.
In a purely punitive carceral framework, the context of the crime is secondary to the violation of the statute. Daniel would likely face a decade in prison.
And the system would just isolate the symptom, the violent act, without addressing the disease.
Exactly. But the presence of an officer with community context alters the paradigm. The officer and the family do not merely see an armed assailant, they see a young man in the grip of a catastrophic mental health and addiction crisis.
Yeah.
When we look at recidivism data, funneling an individual in active psychiatric crisis into a prison environment often exacerbates the underlying trauma, virtually guaranteeing future violent encounters.
It just makes it worse.
Almost always. True de-escalation extends beyond getting the weapon on the floor. It requires dismantling the reasons the weapon was picked up in the first place. The family and the officer collectively chose a restorative approach, prioritizing inpatient rehabilitation over incarceration.
And the memoir guides the reader through a 5-year time jump to demonstrate the efficacy of that choice.
Which is so rewarding to read.
It is. The vet still makes routine calls to Dapple Ranch. Daniel is there. He has maintained his sobriety, his mental health is stable, and he is actually managing the daily operations of the ranch.
Wow.
The individual who stood in that barn demanding money is now entrusted with his family's livelihood.
The outcome really underscores the resilience of the human psyche when treated with systemic support rather than systemic punishment. It validates the immense risk the parents took in advocating for his rehabilitation.
And the book also updates us on Dapple.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the old mare lives several more peaceful years before passing away naturally. And now there's a new horse on the ranch, Dapple Jr., who is Daniel's absolute pride and joy.
That's beautiful.
The text notes that this new horse receives an astonishing level of care. It goes beyond standard animal husbandry. The horse represents the physical embodiment of the family's second chance.
Yeah, and the vet's final reflections in the text offer a really sobering perspective on emergency work.
They really do.
Professionals who operate in high-stakes, late-night environments understand that narratives rarely resolve cleanly. Interventions often fail.
Sadly.
The individuals who cross that threshold of violence usually do not find a path back to redemption.
The incident stays with the vet, not merely because of the terror of facing a loaded weapon. It endures in their memory because it is a statistical anomaly.
Yes.
It is an event where every variable was aligned for a multiple fatality disaster, yet a specific sequence of microscopic details prevented it.
It forces an examination of the fragility of consequence. The demarcation line between a horrific news headline and a profound story of recovery is often dictated by elements entirely outside of our conscious control.
Which leaves you with a final thought to consider regarding the architecture of our own lives.
Yeah.
Just trace the sequence of events backward. If Dapple the mare had not developed an infection on that specific night, the vet would never have been dispatched.
Right.
The intervention, risky as it was, would not have occurred. And more importantly, if Dapple was not visibly ailing in that stall when Daniel turned around, he might never have found the psychological anchor necessary to pull him back from the edge of his own psychosis.
He would never have asked if the horse was okay.
Exactly. How much of the trajectory of our lives relies on these microscopic, seemingly unrelated variables? What are the invisible threads tying us to our humanity, just waiting to be pulled when we need them most?